Okay, folks, I think we'll get started. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, thank you for coming out this morning to attend this very important event. My name is Ron Boltz. I am the president of the Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance. The Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance is a 501c4 organization made up by 100% volunteer staff. Every one of us donate our time and our own personal resources to the cause of school property tax elimination. No one has been paid to gather any one of the 30,000 plus petition signatures that you see on either side of the podium here this morning. We will be delivering these petitions to Governor Wolf and the General Assembly today. This is important to know because it shows how important this issue is to Pennsylvania citizens. These signatures were gathered by people who not only volunteered their time, they went out in the heat of summer, in the cold of winter. Many of our volunteers are senior citizens, and some of them even have health issues, and this shows the dedication that they have to this cause and how important it is to them. For years, we've heard legislators say that this is only a problem in certain small areas of the state. However, our experience has always shown us exactly the opposite to be true. As we traveled across the state, knocking on doors and doing town hall meetings, we found that this issue is, in fact, important everywhere we have been. And 1 year ago, the people themselves got a chance to speak. Last November, 83% of the counties of Pennsylvania approved a constitutional amendment to allow for a 100% exclusion from property taxes on their home. This map shows the green areas where it was approved pretty overwhelmingly. Other statewide polling has shown the property tax as being the #1 issue amongst Pennsylvanians, ranking right up there with jobs and the economy. We now have 30,000 hard-earned petition signatures to back up what we already knew and what we've been telling legislators all along. While some of these signatures were collected with our online petition, along with help from an organization called Citizens to Protect Main Street, the overwhelming majority of them were gathered by good old-fashioned door knocking and by setting up booths and tables at events such as county fairs. In other words, these petitions were gathered with one-on-one conversations with voters and homeowners and constituents in different districts, and after we told them about our plan, they were willing to sign our petitions. We've seen firsthand how devastating this tax is on residents of all ages. Of course, many of our seniors have to give up the homes they've long paid off because they can no longer keep up with the ever-increasing property tax. These seniors don't want to give up their homes, but they have to, or else they go to a sheriff's sale. We've all heard stories of seniors who are forced to make decisions between paying for medication or paying their property taxes. These are not just stories. These people exist. We have met them. But seniors are not the only folks who struggle with this tax. There are many other taxpayers who are also on fixed incomes, or even worse, declining incomes. And even those fortunate enough to get modest wage increases, it's often not enough to keep up with the not so modest property tax increases, as property tax rate increases have been greatly outpacing wage growth in Pennsylvania. The problem with the property tax is not that it's such a large burden on a relatively small tax base who are forced to pay it. The problem is also that it's not in any way, shape, or form based on income, so it results in wildly varying burdens. I personally know some rather wealthy folks who pay 1% or less of their income towards their school property tax. At the same time, I met a single mother in Monroe County who pays 14% of her income towards the school property tax. And recently, I just talked to a woman in Lancaster County who, after the countywide reassessment that took place there, she's a working senior citizen. Between her and her husband's income combined, they pay 25% of their combined income towards their school property taxes. And we've heard stories about disparities being even worse than that. To compound the problem, the property tax is by far the most regressive tax we have. Not only do our lower earners tend to pay a much higher percentage of their income towards the school property tax, we often see the highest millage rates in third-class cities and other areas where the average income is among the lowest. We are not here to seek out a way to avoid paying our share of public education. We believe it's all of our duty to help educate our children, and our state constitution demands that we provide a thorough and efficient system of education. And I'd like to point out that the Constitution lays that burden at the feet of the state legislature, not the local homeowner. We are simply seeking a tax structure that treats every single taxpayer exactly the same way, regardless of where you live, regardless of what school district you reside in, rather than the completely arbitrary system of winners and losers that we have today with the school property tax. We want a system that treats everybody with respect, respects property rights, and restores home ownership, because no tax should ever have the power to leave anyone homeless. Folks, the data are in, there's plenty of it, and we have it. This absolutely can be done, and it must be done. There is no way to fix the property tax. It can never be fair, and it can never be stable through the eyes of the taxpayer. Countywide reassessments are not the answer. This fixes nothing, as assessed values is just as wrong after countywide reassessments as they were before the countywide reassessments, only the taxpayers now spent multiple millions of dollars to try to fix the unfixable. And yes, thanks to friend and consultant Joel Sears, who is also a school board member in York Suburban, we do also have data to back up those statements as well. Reduction schemes don't work either. We hear about reduction schemes being introduced by legislators every session. The problem with that is we know the road that goes down. We can look at the failure of the Act 1 and the casino revenue discount. We were given big promises that resulted in very, very little. So-called targeted relief only makes the problem worse by shrinking the tax base, and it's just one more way for the government to pick winners at the expense of other losers who get to pick up the tab. It's time to eliminate this tax once and for all. The only thing standing in our way are the special interests, their talking points, and their scare tactics. We call on Governor Wolf and the General Assembly to finally find the political willpower to do what we all know is right. Please take note of the unbelievable amount of petitions we have on either side. Like I said earlier, it numbers 30,000 plus hard-earned actual Pennsylvania citizens who finally have enough, who finally heard all the promises every campaign season. It's time to move on and get this done. And at this point, I would like to introduce a friend of mine, Jim Rodkey, from the Pennsylvania Property Rights Association. Jim and I have been traveling the state doing town hall meetings. He's kind of in the foxhole with me, as I always like to say, in this battle. Jim's been stuck in the turnpike with me at 2 o'clock in the morning on our way home from places like Fayette County. We go anywhere that people will have us. So I thank Jim, and I'd like to introduce him now to make a few comments as well. Jim?
As Ron said, my name is Jim Rodkey, and I'm glad to be here. And I am here as a representative of the Pennsylvania Property Rights Association, working happily in conjunction with Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance. The purpose of the Pennsylvania Property Rights Association was to assemble a team of unpaid consultants of diverse backgrounds to explore this issue of property taxation thoroughly through the accumulation of outside data and research. That research and data ultimately reaches the same conclusions. The property tax has become the most harmful tax in this Commonwealth, harmful to the people of this Commonwealth and harmful to the overall economy of the state. Today, we are here to join with Pennsylvania Liberty Alliance in the delivery of the voice of the people of Pennsylvania to the governor, to all elected representatives, and to those seeking the office, carrying the message that when it comes to the school property tax, we, the people, no longer consent. And we're standing on our constitutionally protected right that's assured in Article 1, Section 2 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. So we've come to send this notification that all power is inherent in the people and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And for the advancement of these ends, they have at all times an inalienable and indefeasible right to alter and reform their government in such manner as they think possible. As Ron has demonstrated, the people of this state have spoken, and it's time for the legislative body to step up. We, the people, have done and will continue to do our part. We sent a message to Harrisburg with that voter referendum. Poll after poll on this issue reinforces that same message. And today, with these signatures gathered from across the entire Commonwealth, with not one single county unrepresented, we reinforce that the way we fund education through property taxation must come to an end. Yes, we all understand that education is important. And yes, we all understand that education must be funded. However, we need to provide for funding for education through a system that, as our Constitution demands, is both thorough and efficient. The property tax is neither of these, not for those who must pay it, not for those who are among the 10,000 or more who lost their homes due to this egregious and regressive system of taxation just this year. By no measure or standard can property tax be classified as fair or just because of the nature of property tax itself. We have made it clear that we are not here to escape any obligation in education funding. We are willing to provide through fair and equal taxation for education, but we will no longer tolerate a property tax to do so. We are more than willing to pay our fair share, but we will do so only through a replacement revenue that is equitable and fair to everyone, fair to our schools, fair to the business community, fair to homeowners, and equitable for everyone. We are here today to send a very, very clear message. And as we come into this next legislative session, a warning to everyone up here, we're watching. When it comes to property taxation, we, the people of this Commonwealth, no longer consent.
Thank you very much, Jim. At this point, we have 3 legislators that we invited to be here with us today, and I would like to introduce those folks. Now, they are by no means our only supporters. We picked the particular gentleman that we have here today based on who we believe has been our most helpful and most outspoken in the House and are on the Senate side and also on the House. As I'll be introducing Colonel Frank Ryan here in a minute. He is a freshman legislator who has really gone above and beyond to help us with this cause, so we have some new voices as well. But I'd like to begin by introducing Senator Argall. Of course, we can't talk about property tax elimination without Senator Argall's name being mentioned. He has been for quite some time been our champion in the Senate on SB 76 and other issues. It hasn't exactly been an easy row to hoe, I believe, and he's taken a lot of heat for us, so he deserves all the credit that he gets, and we'd like to bring Senator Argall up here now for a few comments from him. Thank you.
I wondered what 30,000 petitions would look like, and so now we know. I've told Ron many times that my life changed the day that people who had decided that they had just had enough came to me shortly after my first election to the Senate and said, please introduce this bill, which became Senate Bill 76, on our behalf. As he had indicated, we've tried to tweak the property tax, we've tried to fix the property tax, we've tried to reform the property tax. Those ideas just never worked. The only way to fix it is to eliminate it and start all over again. And since I introduced this bill, I now understand that whether I'm at a baseball game in my district in Schuylkill and Berks County, or a Cub Scout function, or any kind of event, food shopping with my wife, 9 times out of 10, if someone comes up to me and says about that bill, this is the bill that they're talking about. Out of all the other issues that reverberate around this Capitol, this is by far the #1 issue in the minds of the people that I represent. We came so close last session. That 24-24 vote, the first ever in the history of the Pennsylvania Senate. Had the Lieutenant Governor voted with us instead of voted against us, we would have been able to move it to the House for the very first time. And after that, there was a lot of soul searching. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that that vote broke our hearts. And I've had people come to me and said, you know, why don't you just give up? And the answer is because the people that brought me to this issue have never given up. As you can see, collecting 30,000 signatures all across Pennsylvania, they haven't given up. And so my message to them today and always will be, if you're in, I'm in.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Thank you, Senator Argall. I'd like to next introduce Senator Fulmer. Of course, just like Senator Argyle, we can't talk about property tax elimination without also mentioning all the work and support that Senator Fulmer has given us. Not only Senator Fulmer, but also his office staff. They have put in unbelievable amount of man hours into this legislation. I should probably also mention Mario Scavello. He's pretty outspoken as well. He's not here today, but I would probably be remiss if I didn't also mention Mario. But for now, I want to bring up Senator Fulmer. Thank you so much for all your support, Mike, and please give us a few comments.
Sure. Thanks. I do have a few comments because I think this issue is so deeply rooted in the basic freedoms of who we are as a people in the United States of America. You know, in drafting the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson took the sentiments of English philosopher John Locke, who previously wrote, "All individuals are born with certain inalienable and natural rights. Among these fundamental natural rights," Locke said, "are the life, liberty, and property." Jefferson turned these words into, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Article 14 of the United States Constitution prohibits any state from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of these laws. Article 1, Section 1 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, inherent rights of mankind, states, "All men are born equally free and independent and have certain inherent and indefeasible rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property and reputation, and of pursuing their own happiness." My question to each of you is this: how can these fundamental property rights, guaranteed by the founding principles of our great constitutional republic, be fulfilled if the people are simply renting their properties from schools rather than owning their properties outright? Renting properties is the net effect of the school property tax. Excuse me. Fortunately, taxpayers have an alternative to the status quo. Senate Bill 76 to provide for the total elimination of school property taxes. For too long, people have heard promises to eliminate school property taxes. It's time to put these promises into action by advancing the principles of Senate Bill 76 to eliminate school property taxes. When Robert F. Kennedy ran for president in 1968, he adopted a quote from George Bernard Shaw as his campaign slogan: "Some people see things as they are and ask why. I dreamed things that never were and ask why not." We need to dream big, act big, by working to reach the much needed and long overdue goal of eliminating school property taxes. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, and this has been said many times, and Jim, this is your quote, no tax should be able to tax you out of your home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Fulmer. I'd like to now introduce Representative and Colonel Frank Ryan. We are particularly happy with freshman Ryan. We are just overwhelmed. It's been really a pretty big, energizing force to have you with us, Frank. He's come in. Frank not only understands the property tax issue, his knowledge goes far beyond. He understands the economic impact and so on. We are just really excited about working with Frank. Frank brings new ideas to this. We've been sort of stuck in the same routine for quite some time, and Jim and I have been meeting with Frank, and he has some fresh ideas, and we really look forward to working with Frank further on this issue. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up Representative Frank Ryan.
Nothing gives me greater pleasure than at 67 years old to be called a freshman. It's unbelievable. We're going to have a kegger in my office right after the event. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a CPA and I specialize in keeping companies out of bankruptcy. And I will tell you that this property tax elimination is absolutely essential if we hope to save and preserve this Commonwealth. Let me burst a few myths for you. You'll frequently hear the comment that a state or a Commonwealth cannot go bankrupt. That is just not true. Promesis and the Supreme Court gave the format and the methodology by which a Commonwealth can go bankrupt. According to the state's figures, we have over $75 billion of unfunded liabilities, but if you account for it the way we have to account for it in the civilian community, it's $110 billion. To that, on June 30th, 2018, GASB 75, a geek term, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, added an additional $30 billion to it. Let me break a second myth for you. Many people believe that the state is on the hook for your school unfunded pensions. That is just not true. If you don't believe it, look at the comprehensive annual financial report for the Commonwealth. You will not see $1 of the school's unfunded pension liabilities or unfunded post-retirement benefit costs on our state financials. So what's that got to do with eliminating school property taxes? The Independent Fiscal Office has indicated that younger people are leaving in droves, and the seniors who can't move are losing 10,000 homes per year to a tax that is so unjust that it steals the homes from the very people we are designed to protect. We have 2 to 4 years to turn this Commonwealth around. We need to get our spending under control. And I have to be candid with you, our senators have done a phenomenal job. Senator Argo and Senator Fulmer are both dear friends. And there's a term that we use in the United States Marine Corps called devil dogs. Let me explain to you how that term came about. That term came about in the Battle of Belleau Wood, and no, I was not there, in which Marines advanced 6 times against the German positions and finally prevailed. And the German commander said in German, "These are devil dogs." Well, let me tell you, behind me and with the 30,000 signatures you have here, you've just met the property tax bulldogs, the property tax devil dogs, and we're going to make this thing happen. We're going to get it done. I look forward to talking and working with the Senate to get this done, as well as with the Alliance. And Jim and Ron and others, David, Mike, you have just done a phenomenal job, and we're going to win this battle. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Do you see what I mean when I say we're excited about having Frank on board? I mean, thanks again, Colonel. I appreciate it. At this point, what we're going to do before we deliver the petitions to Governor Wolf in the General Assembly, we'd like to take any questions that the press may have. So is there any questions out there?